Once upon a time, a group of mice lived in the kitchen of a cosy little house. They were quite happy, scurrying about and nibbling on crumbs left behind by the family who lived there. Life was good for the mice, and they enjoyed their days without much worry. One day the family decided to bring a pet cat into the house. The cat, sleek and stealthy, quickly became a threat to the mice. Each day the cat would silently creep into the kitchen and catch a mouse. The mice lived in constant fear, never knowing when the cat might strike next. As their numbers dwindled, the mice knew that they had to do something to protect themselves. They called a meeting to discuss their options. Mice of all ages gathered to share their ideas and come up with a solution. One mouse, known for his cleverness, stood up and said, "I have a brilliant idea. If we can hang a bell around the cat's neck, we'll always hear her coming and have time to escape." The mice cheered at the idea, thinking it was the perfect solution. They could already imagine the relief of knowing when the cat was approaching. But as the excitement died down, an older, wiser mouse stepped forward. "Yes, it's a great idea," he said, "but who will be the one to hang the bell on the cat?" The mice looked at each other in silence. The task was dangerous and seemed impossible. One by one they realized that none of them was brave enough to get close to the cat and hang the bell around her neck. The meeting ended with the mice agreeing to be more careful and to rely on their wits to avoid the cat. Morale: it's important to think things through before making plans. Once upon a time, in a dense forest, there lived a donkey named Dodo. One day, while grazing and wandering near the edge of the forest, Dodo stumbled upon the skin of a lion. The lion had long since passed away, and its skin was left behind by some hunters. An idea sparked in Dodo's mind. "If I wear this lion's skin," he thought, "the other animals will fear me." With some effort, Dodo managed to drape the lion's skin over his back. He adjusted it carefully to make sure it covered his entire body and head, making him look like a fierce lion. Dodo walked back into the forest, and as he strolled through the trees, he spotted a deer walking peacefully. The deer noticed the lion and froze in terror. Dodo took a step forward, and the deer bolted away, disappearing into the dense foliage. "This is amazing," thought Dodo. "They really believe I'm a lion." Emboldened by his success, Dodo continued his walk and soon came across a sleeping wolf. He crept up quietly and gave the wolf's tail a sharp tug. The wolf woke up with a start, saw the lion standing over him, and fled without a second thought. Dodo could hardly contain his excitement. Next, Dodo encountered a fox. The fox was taken aback by the sight of the lion. Dodo let out a menacing growl, and the fox scampered away in fear. As Dodo roamed through the forest, other animals also saw him and ran away in panic. He was thrilled by the chaos he was causing. In his excitement, Dodo couldn't help but express his joy. He opened his mouth and let out a loud bray. "Hee-haw! Hee-haw!" The sound echoed through the forest, and the animals stopped in their tracks. They turned around, realizing that the terrifying lion was, in fact, just a donkey in disguise. The animals, now aware of the deception, were angry. They surrounded Dodo and gave him a lesson he wouldn't forget. Dodo, standing there feeling embarrassed and ashamed, realizing the folly of his actions. He learned that fine clothes may disguise, but still words will disclose a fool. In a lush meadow there lived a hard-working colony of ants. These ants were always busy, tirelessly working from dawn till dusk, gathering food and preparing for the cold winter months. Every day they would march in lines carrying seeds, grains, and other bits of food back to their home. One warm and sunny summer's day, as the ants were busy collecting food, a carefree grasshopper hopped into the meadow. The grasshopper, with his bright green body and long legs, loved nothing more than to sing, play his guitar, and enjoy the beautiful weather. As he was playing, he noticed the ants struggling under the weight of the food they were carrying. "Why are you working so hard on such a beautiful day?" the grasshopper called out to the ants. "Come and enjoy the sunshine, sing with me, play with me, and let's have some fun." One of the ants stopped for a moment and looked up at the grasshopper. "We're storing food for the winter," he explained. "It may be warm now, but when the cold comes there will be no food in the meadow. We must be prepared." The grasshopper laughed and waved a leg dismissively. "Winter is far away. Why worry about tomorrow when today is so lovely? There's plenty of time to gather food later. Right now, it's time to enjoy life." The ant shook his head and continued on his way, but the grasshopper paid no heed to the warning. He spent his days singing, dancing, and playing in the sun without a care in the world. As the days passed, the grasshopper would often see the ants busily working, but he always found an excuse not to join them. "I'll start gathering food tomorrow," he told himself. "There's still plenty of time." But tomorrow never came. Soon the cold winds of winter began to blow, and the once lush meadow was now covered in snow. The grasshopper shivered as he sat in his door at the snow-covered meadow. The grass, once green and abundant, was gone, and the insects he used to feast on had disappeared. Hungry and cold, the grasshopper remembered the ants and their well-stocked home. He dragged himself to the door of Ant's house and knocked weakly on the door. The ants, warm and well-fed inside, opened the door and saw the grasshopper. "Please," the grasshopper begged, "I'm starving and freezing. I have no food and I'm so hungry. Can you spare some of your food to help me?" The ant, who had warned the grasshopper during the summer, stepped forward. He looked at the grasshopper with a mix of pity and disappointment. "During the summer, when we were working hard to prepare for the winter, you laughed at us. We warned you that winter would come, but you didn't listen." The grasshopper hung his head in shame. "I know," he said softly. "I was foolish and lazy. I didn't think the winter would come so soon. Please forgive me and help me." The ants whispered among themselves. Some were angry and felt that the grasshopper should suffer the consequences of his laziness. But others, feeling compassion, reminded others that everyone makes mistakes and that it is important to help those in need. Finally, the ant who had spoken to the grasshopper in the summer turned to him and said, "We will help you, but let this be a lesson. There is a time for work and a time for play. If you do not prepare for the future, you will suffer when hard times come." The ants shared their food with the grasshopper. The grasshopper went home, grateful for Ant's kindness. He promised himself that when the next summer came, he would work alongside the ants to prepare for the future. Once upon a time, a powerful and fearsome lion lived in a dense jungle and ruled over all the animals. The lion was very greedy and would hunt indiscriminately, killing more animals than he could eat. The animals of the jungle were terrified and decided to hold a meeting to discuss how to deal with the lion. After much deliberation, they decided to send one animal daily to the lion as his food. This way, the lion would not hunt randomly, and the animals could live peacefully. The lion agreed to this plan, as it meant he would always have a guaranteed meal. One day, it was a hare's turn to be sent to the lion. The hare was very clever and did not want to become the lion's meal. As he walked towards the lion's den, he devised a plan. The hare deliberately took his time, arriving late. When the lion saw the hare, he was furious. "Why are you so late? I am starving," roared the lion. The hare calmly replied, "Oh, mighty lion, I was on my way here when another lion attacked me. He claimed to be the king of this jungle and wanted to eat me. I barely escaped to come and tell you this." The lion, enraged at the thought of another lion challenging his authority, demanded, "Take me to this other lion immediately." The clever hare led the lion to a deep well. He pointed to the well and said, "The other lion is hiding in there." The lion peered into the well and saw his own reflection in the water. Thinking it was the other lion, he roared loudly. The roar echoed back, making the lion believe that the other lion was roaring back at him. In a fit of rage, the lion jumped into the well to attack his rival, only to drown in the deep water. Hearing the noise, other animals gathered around the hare, and he told them what had just happened. The animals rejoiced, thanking the clever hare for saving them from the greedy lion. Dear kids, this story teaches us the importance of using one's wit to solve problems and achieve goals. In the heart of a dense jungle, there lived a mighty lion who was known as the king of all animals. He was strong and powerful. Proud in his strength, the lion had grown arrogant, believing that nothing and no one could ever challenge him. One hot afternoon, the lion decided to take a nap near a cool pond. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The lion stretched out comfortably under the shade of a large tree, his deep snores filling the air as he drifted off to sleep. This pond was home to a group of mosquitoes. Their peace was disturbed by the lion's loud snoozing. One mosquito was woken up by the lion's thunderous snores. Annoyed by the disturbance, the mosquito buzzed angrily, thinking about how he could quiet this arrogant lion. He may be the king of the jungle, but he needs to learn some manners, the mosquito thought. Determined to teach the lion a lesson, the mosquito flew closer and started to buzz loudly, hoping to irritate the lion. Sure enough, the lion stirred, opened his eyes in annoyance as the buzzing sound reached his ear. "Who dares to wake me?" the lion growled. The mosquito, undeterred by the lion's menacing tone, buzzed even louder. "It's me. You may be the king of the jungle, but that doesn't give you the right to disturb our peace. I will teach you a lesson." The lion, hearing this, roared with laughter. "You, a mosquito, teach me a lesson? How absurd! I could crush you with a single swipe of my paw." But the mosquito was undeterred. "We'll see about that," he replied. With that, the mosquito bravely landed on the lion's nose and gave him a sharp bite. The lion roared in pain, swatting at his face, but the mosquito was too quick. Now the mosquito bit the lion on his tail, causing the lion to swipe wildly with his massive paws. The more the lion tried to catch the mosquito, the more he ended up scratching himself. Realizing he needed backup, the mosquito called out to his friends. "Come, friends, let's show this lion our strength." Hearing the call, the other mosquitoes at the pond woke up and quickly joined him. They all swarmed around the lion, biting him from every direction. The lion, now completely overwhelmed, his once mighty roars turned into cries of frustration and pain. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, the lion gave up. He turned tail and ran away into the jungle, desperate to escape the stinging bites. Satisfied with their victory, the mosquitoes stopped chasing the lion and flew back to their pond, celebrating with excitement. All of them returned home except for the one mosquito who had started it all. Feeling proud of his success, the mosquito couldn't resist the temptation to boast. "Did you see how we made that lion run? I truly am the greatest." In his arrogance, the mosquito started flying higher and farther from the pond, not paying attention to where he was going. As he buzzed around, lost in his thoughts, he flew straight into a large spider's web that was stretched between branches of a tree. The mosquito struggled, trying to free himself, but it was too late. The sticky strands of the web held him fast. A spider sitting nearby started laughing. Well, what do we have here?" the spider said with a grin. "A proud little mosquito who flew too far from home." With no way to escape, the mosquito realized too late that his arrogance had led him into danger. The spider swiftly wrapped the mosquito in its web and devoured him, ending the mosquito's story in a single bite. So, kids, sometimes the smallest can humble the mighty, but do you know why the mosquito's victory over the lion was short-lived? It's because he let his pride blind him to the dangers around him. This story teaches us to stay humble in all circumstances. Once upon a time, a flock of pigeons was flying across the sky in search of food. They had been flying for a long time and were very tired and hungry. One of the pigeons spotted a wheat field below and excitedly informed the others. "Look, there's a wheat field down there. Let's go and eat," the pigeon said. The flock descended and started pecking at the grains, enjoying the unexpected feast. They were so absorbed in eating that they didn't notice a hunter quietly approaching them. The hunter threw a large net over the pigeons, trapping them. The pigeons were startled and tried to fly away, but the net held them down. They began to panic, thinking their end was near. Just then the leader of the pigeons said, "Don't panic, my friends. If we all fly up together, we can lift the net and escape." The pigeons listened to their leader and began to flap their wings in unison. Slowly the net started to lift off the ground. With a great effort they flew up, carrying the net with them. They flew together, still trapped in the net, and reached a nearby jungle. In the jungle lived a wise mouse, a friend of the pigeon leader. The leader called out to the mouse for help. The mouse came and saw the pigeons trapped in the net. Understanding the situation, the mouse quickly began to gnaw at the net with its sharp teeth. One by one, the threads of the net broke, and soon the pigeons were free. The pigeons thanked the mouse for saving their lives. The pigeon leader then turned to his flock and said, "Remember, unity is strength. When we work together, we can achieve great things and overcome even the most difficult challenges." One hot summer afternoon, a crow was sitting on the branch of a tall tree. The sun was blazing in the sky. The crow, who had been flying for hours in search of water, was feeling extremely thirsty. As he sat on the branch, he could feel his throat getting drier with each passing moment. Determined, the crow flew off the branch and began searching the area below. He scanned the surroundings with his sharp eyes, looking for any sign of water. He flew over trees, fields, and even a few houses, but there was no water to be found. The crow was beginning to lose hope when suddenly he spotted something in the distance. Curious, the crow flew closer and saw a water clay pot lying on the ground in a fruit garden. "Water!" he thought excitedly. He flapped his wings faster and descended toward the clay pot. When he reached it, the crow perched on the edge of the clay pot and looked inside. To his disappointment, the clay pot was not full. In fact, there was only a little bit of water at the bottom, and the crow's beak couldn't reach it. The crow's heart sank. What should I do now? He wondered. The crow was determined not to give up. He knew there had to be a way to get to the water. The crow sat there thinking hard. As he pondered the situation, his eyes fell on some small pebbles lying nearby. Suddenly, an idea struck him. What if I drop these pebbles into the clay pot? Maybe the water will rise, he thought. Without wasting any time, he picked up a pebble in his beak and dropped it into the clay pot. He watched as the pebble sank to the bottom and the water level rose just a tiny bit. Encouraged, the crow picked up another pebble and dropped it into the clay pot. Then another, and another. Slowly but surely the water level began to rise. The crow continued to drop pebbles into it until, at last, the water was within reach of his beak. With a sigh of relief, the crow drank the cool, refreshing water. His thirst was finally quenched. Satisfied, the crow flew back to his tree, feeling content and grateful. The crow felt proud of himself for not giving up and for using his wits to solve the problem. So his quick thinking and determination saved the day. In a beautiful countryside there lived 3 good friends, Harvey the hare, Toby the tortoise, and Squeaky the squirrel. Harvey, being the fastest animal in the neighbourhood, was always bragging about his speed. He would boast around, "No one can beat me in a race." One afternoon, as Harvey once again showed off his speed, Toby, who was quiet but wise, said, "Speed isn't everything, Harvey. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race." Harvey burst out laughing. "You beat me in a race? That's impossible, Toby. You're so slow you'll never make it to the finish line." Squeaky, who had been watching them nearby, hopped down and said, "How about we settle this once and for all? Let's have a race. I'll be the judge." Both Harvey and Toby agreed. They set the finish line. Squeaky clapped her tiny paws. "All right, the race will start tomorrow morning. I'll be at the finish line to make sure it's fair." The next day, Toby stood calmly at the starting line while Harvey stretched and prepared, confident in his victory. Squeaky climbed onto a branch and held a leaf high in the air. "On your marks, get set, go!" she squeaked, dropping the leaf. Harvey shot off like an arrow, racing far ahead, disappearing down the path. Toby, on the other hand, began his slow, steady walk, step by step. Toby wasn't worried at all. He knew he couldn't compete with Harvey's speed, but he trusted his own pace. As Harvey raced ahead, he looked back and saw nobody could be seen on the path. "This is too easy," he laughed. "I've got plenty of time," he thought. "Toby's so slow I could sleep for hours and still win." He hopped over to a soft patch of grass. "I think I'll take a nap," Harvey said to himself, and went to sleep. Meanwhile, Toby kept moving, slow and steady, without stopping. He didn't rush, but he didn't rest either. He just kept going, passing the spot where Harvey was sleeping. His legs were tired, but he simply moved forward, step by step, with his eyes fixed on the finish line. Hours later, Harvey woke up and stretched, yawning. When he looked down the path, he saw nobody. He laughed, raced off at full speed, but it was too late. Just as Harvey reached the finish line, he saw Toby standing there, smiling. Harvey was stunned. "How did you beat me?" he asked, still trying to catch his breath. Toby smiled warmly. "I told you, Harvey, slow and steady wins the race." Squeaky, who had climbed down to congratulate the winner, nodded. Harvey, you were too focused on your speed and didn't take the race seriously, but Toby kept going. He never gave up, and that's why he won." Harvey hung his head, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I guess I was too overconfident. I should have taken the race seriously." Toby placed a friendly paw on Harvey's shoulder and said, "It's okay, Harvey. We all learn from our mistakes." From that day on, Harvey became more humble. He no longer bragged about his speed, and he admired Toby's patience and perseverance. The three friends remained close. So friends, it's not about how fast you go, but how you keep going. In a small town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a stray dog named Bruno. He spent most of his days roaming the streets, always on the lookout for something to eat. One afternoon, Bruno found himself outside a busy meat shop. The smell of fresh meat wafted through the air, making his mouth water. As he sat there, his eyes fixed on the juicy cuts displayed on the counter, Bruno's stomach growled loudly. He knew that the shopkeeper was kind and often gave him bones, but today Bruno wanted something more, a nice big piece of meat all to himself. Bruno made a plan. He sat there watching the shopkeeper as he served the customers. He decided to wait for the right moment when the shopkeeper would be distracted. Finally, the opportunity came. The shopkeeper got busy with the customer, and Bruno seized the chance. With a swift and silent movement, he darted into the shop, grabbed a large piece of meat with his teeth, and bolted out. Bruno ran as fast as his legs could carry him, not stopping until he reached the edge of town. There, a small bridge crossed over a clear stream. Feeling safe at last, Bruno slowed down and began to trot across the bridge, the piece of meat still firmly clutched in his mouth. As Bruno walked across the bridge, he glanced down at the water and saw his reflection. In his greedy mind, he thought it was another dog with an even bigger piece of meat. "That dog has a bigger piece of meat than I do," Bruno thought. "If I could get that piece too, I would have double the meat." Without thinking, Bruno opened his mouth to bark at the reflection, hoping to scare the other dog and take its meat, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the piece of meat he was carrying fell out and splashed into the stream below. Bruno watched in horror as the meat sank into the water and was carried away by the current. He barked and whined, but it was too late. His greed had cost him everything. The reflection in the water disappeared, and Bruno was left standing on the bridge, hungry and with nothing to show for his efforts. Feeling foolish and regretful, Bruno slowly made his way back to the town. His stomach growled with hunger, but more than that, his heart felt heavy with the realization of what he had done. When Bruno returned to the meat shop, he saw that the shopkeeper had already noticed the missing meat. But instead of being angry, he just shook his head with a knowing smile. Bruno sat down outside, his head hanging low. He had learned a hard lesson that day, that greed could make you lose what you already have. And so Bruno became a wiser dog, content with the bones that shopkeeper gave him, and never again did he try to steal from the shop. He understood that it's always better to be grateful for what you have, rather than lose it all to greed. Once upon a time, in a lush jungle, there lived two powerful rulers. The lion with his mighty roar was the king of all the animals, and the vulture with his big body was the king of all the birds. One sunny day the lion had hunted a deer and was enjoying his hard-earned meal in a quiet corner of the jungle. The rich scent of the fresh meat spread through the air, catching the attention of the vulture, who was gliding high above. With a swift dive, the vulture swooped down, snatched the piece of meat from the lion's jaws, and flew away. The lion was furious. His roar echoed through the jungle, shaking the trees. "How dare he?" the lion growled. "No one steals from the king of the jungle." Determined to teach him a lesson, the lion gathered his animals. Together they hatched a plan to attack the birds and show them who truly ruled the jungle. Under the cover of night, when the birds were fast asleep, the animals launched their surprise attack. They crept through the jungle and pounced on the sleeping birds, causing chaos and confusion. The birds, unprepared and frightened, flapped their wings wildly, trying to escape the sudden onslaught. At dawn, the birds gathered around their king, the vulture. "We must fight back," they cried. The vulture, furious at the audacity of the animals, devised a plan of his own. "We will gather stones," he declared, "and rain them down upon the animals. They will regret ever crossing us." The birds, eager to reclaim their pride, collected as many stones as they could find and started their journey to find the animals. After some time, the birds found them and began hurling the stones with all their might. The animals were caught off guard and had to retreat, bruised and battered by the birds' attack. Amidst this fierce battle between the beasts and the birds, there lived a clever bat. He watched the war from the shadows. He was very cunning and decided to play both sides to avoid danger. When the animals seemed to be winning, the bat would fly down to them and declare, "Look at me! I am an animal just like you. I have fur and teeth. I belong to your side." The animals, thinking the bat was one of them, accepted him into their ranks. But when the birds seemed to be gaining the upper hand, the bat would fly up to them and say, "Look at me! I have wings and can fly just like you. I am one of you." The birds, believing the bat to be a fellow bird, welcomed him among them. The war raged on for days, with both sides growing more and more exhausted. Finally, both the animals and the birds, tired of the endless fighting and realizing that neither side would truly win, decided to call it quits. They realized that living in harmony was better than constant conflict. They agreed to a truce and gathered at the edge of the jungle to discuss peace. As they sat together speaking of reconciliation, someone brought up the bat. "Where is that bat?" a bird asked. "He was always with us, but never truly one of us." "He was with us too," said an animal, narrowing his eyes. "Yet he never fought for our cause." The lion, now calm, spoke wisely. "It's easy to change sides and make friends with whoever seems strong, but real strength comes from being loyal and honest." The vulture also nodded. "We fought for each other, but the bat only cared about himself." Both the animals and the birds agreed that the bat could not be trusted. They banished him from their groups. From that day on, the bat, who had thought himself clever, was left to fly alone. He became a nocturnal creature, coming out only at night, when neither the birds nor the animals could see him.